So that's
the 8,000 cases that the slides I put up earlier, Jim, if you could go back to that one, that's 2-page.
That's 2-page, that's not
2-page. I'm not taking Illinois, just 2-page, our hometown, our backyard.
Got it. And so these are just, all right, so this is 2-page. Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
Next slide, Jim.
Well,
Okay. Basically, so what have we been doing in regards to COVID here at Fenton? Just a couple updates. Fenton staff continues to work on the 3 scenarios that we've described for the last 2 board meetings. Remote learning 2.0, hybrid/blended learning, which is a combination of remote learning and in-person, as well as in-person. We continue to bolster our remote learning 2.0, and the reason why we call it 2.0 instead of 1.0, as you know, we're trying to bolster that. And how are we bolstering that? We basically took surveys, thought exchange from parents, students, and staff, and how can we make the learning experiences better? Similar to what I reported at the meeting. We are bolstering about providing professional development to our teachers, improving connectivity, whether it's Wi-Fi and other technology tools, and improving the learning experience for our students and improving communication with our parents. We're using the data that we collected from our surveys to make appropriate changes because that's what our community is asking for. In addition to bolstering 2.0, so we're working tandemly because the information coming from ISB IDPH, as you know, is tremendous. We also focus on the hybrid blended learning. Okay, once again, that's remote learning plus in-person. The goal is to start bringing kids in eventually in the fall, which is a combination of remote learning and in-person. Specifically, we will focus our attention on how we will bring students back in the building. As you know, the governor, ISB, and IDPH released a transition joint guidance document titled Starting the 2020-2021 School Year yesterday afternoon at 2:30. Our team, our administrative team, started unpacking the guidance this morning. Okay. So far, the key points that we have found are to require, and it's on the slide, require the use of appropriate personal protective equipment or PPE, including face covering, prohibit more than 50 individuals from gathering in one space, require social distancing to be observed as much as possible. That's 6 feet. Require that school conducts symptom screening and temperature checks, or require that individuals self-certify that they are free of symptoms before entering school buildings, and require an increase in school-wide cleaning and disinfection. Those are the big takeaways and guidelines from IDPH. As like I said earlier, we got the document yesterday, and we'll continue to unpack and to implement it in the fall. Tomorrow, for example, a group of the administration are going to lock ourselves up pretty much into our 6 feet apart, obviously, and really just hash out what this means and start creating a schedule for the fall. Next slide, please. Okay, so what's the ongoing work? Number one, we need to continue to unpack the guidance document that we received yesterday and to implement it in the fall. Create a hybrid schedule, which is a combination of remote learning and in-person. The schedule will incorporate groups of students in the building. We are talking to other high school districts, and the schedule that is reasonable is an A-B schedule combination, and we could flush that out as we flush it out with the administrative team, but real quickly you get 2 groups of students coming in at different days of the week. Again, we have not solidified a schedule yet. I do not believe any high school district has, since the guidance came out yesterday. Starting tomorrow, administration will start brainstorming and constructing a schedule, and there's just more to come. We're asking everyone to be patient as this information is new to everybody. And lastly, I think we have to create a reopening plan for our district, which will incorporate the hybrid schedule. When we will launch that out, hopefully at the middle of July, and present it to the board at the July board meeting. and we need to communicate that to our families and community. I know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we continue to work diligently to plan ahead. Next slide, please. Okay. As you might have heard in the news, IHSA has put out 2 documents regarding how athletes can start conditioning in person. Okay. There are some high schools in DuPage that have started conditioning, and there are some that have not. Okay. Where is Fenton? Fenton's focus is safety and wellness. At this point, the consensus from administration, our athletic director, assistant athletic director, and input from our coaches is not to hold athletic conditioning currently. The next topic is resolution affirming the Fenton's Board of Education's commitment to equity and diversity. During this time of social injustice in our country, many school district and Board of Education has affirmed their commitment to equity and diversity. This is a proposal for the board to consider a resolution to affirm the board's commitment to equity and diversity. We will discuss this proposal during the discussion section of the board meeting. So that's later on in a couple minutes. ACA compliance report. ACA stands for Affordable Care Act. A part-time Fenton staff qualified for insurance through the Affordable Care Act. Per ACA compliance, we offered the coverage to the individual. The individual was not interested. Okay, I just have to report it to the board. Lastly, we received a FOIA request from ABC 7 News. A staff from ABC 7 requested attendance rate during remote learning and how attendance is being tracked. The request was provided to this individual.
Hey, James?
Yes.
Just a quick clarification. Just to clarify regarding the 2.0, that, because I know at our last meeting and even prior to that, you know, the concern was curriculum depth. And 2.0 addresses that. I mean, that's a heightened level of where we were at, where the school was at in this last semester. I mean, as of like March and April and May, of course. So just to clarify, 2.0 addresses those concerns that were voiced back then regarding curriculum depth, correct?
Yes, it does. That was one of the, as you know, as we reported to the board last time, that was, or 2 board meetings ago, that was one of the concerns that we received from the parents, and that is being addressed.
Good.
Okay.
Do you know if ABC is going to do anything publicly about the remote learning attendance? Like, can we see this report or?
I do not know, Patty. I think this individual or ABC as an organization is asking all school districts for this data. Have not replied to us. I know I asked the superintendent if they received this request. They have, but I haven't seen anything in the news in regards to that. As you know, our attendance is pretty high at about 93, 94%. And how we collect attendance is through a program called Power School.
So even with the remote learning, we had a 93, 94%?
Attendance rate, yes.
Yeah, great.
James?
Yes.
So you mentioned that some of the schools are doing sports activities right now for summer.
They're doing conditioning, Juliet.
Okay, with the idea that there's going to be sports in the fall, or what is the idea?
I think that's what everyone's hoping. At least that's what IHSA is hoping. To be frank and honest with you, no one really knows, Juliet. I think that's what we're hoping for. And I believe they are planning for that as well. We will see.
Will there be some sort of guidelines for that as far as
That's a good question.
social distancing?
Yeah, right. It's hard to say with football, as you know.
Yeah.
everyone's on top of each other. We were
I'm just
hoping,
wondering how that works.
yeah, we were hoping for this guidance yesterday to be a little bit more clear cut. Obviously, from what I have read so far, that was not stated, Juliet.
Okay. But the hope is that sports will continue, that there'll be some in school classes possibly, or you just don't know yet?
We don't know yet, but that's the hope.
Okay. Or some hybrid of it. Okay.
Yeah.
James, that probably goes for the hang on.
I'm sorry.
Kit, you're on mute.
Okay. I think that probably goes for the other activities as well, like choir and speech. Similar mentalities going.
Yeah, that's correct. Just keep in mind, folks, that situation. We're going to follow the guidelines. But yes, I think you're accurate.
And James, just to clarify regarding that, the IHSA is not a governing body. They're an outside organization that has no real. They really don't report to the ISB or any other governing body, correct?
That is correct. They don't report to the governor or ISB.
But they're influencing what's going on, basically, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions regarding any of these?
No.
Any of these items?
I just want to confirm to the board, hey, look, we are working hard. Please take into consideration information is changing almost weekly. We are very proud where we're at with our remote learning 2.0, and we are ahead in regards to planning for the hybrid. We're excited to take that next challenge on, and we will keep you posted.
Yeah, I mean, that really does look like a monumental task, bringing it up to 2.0 virtually. So, yeah, I mean, I think we know that there's a lot of effort going behind that.
Thank you.
James, can I ask one other question in regard to the 2.0? Is it, if it ends up being remote learning, are there plans in the works for the teachers to be teaching virtually in front of the class, kind of a thing? Like, or are they going to do somewhat like what they did last semester with just kind of watch this video and do this work kind of a thing? Or will they do maybe a weekly teaching scenario virtually?
Great question. I see Michelle nodding in her head. Michelle, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we've been working on a schedule, and we're pretty close to finalizing it, where at least one day a week for each class is taught what we're calling live connection. And all students are actually expected to be available for a second day of live connection if so needed. So that would be like a support day where smaller groups can come in and get help, or if the teacher sees that a student needs more guidance in that area, they would have a second day of live connection as well. So we're anticipating 1 to 2 live connection days for every single period.
So live connection, like in-person live or via Zoom?
Oh, like via a Zoom-like platform. We had only worked on the remote 2.0. So remote for us is a virtual setting.
Okay.
Good, thank
So
you.
every student, every class. So if they're in 8 classes, then they might need connection with 8 teachers. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. And yeah, up 1 to 2 times a week, but one is guaranteed. And the second one, from the sounds of what the teachers are saying, they're going to take advantage of that second opportunity too. It's just a matter of ensuring that those students are making themselves available both periods. So every day they will be engaged online with with live virtual instruction throughout most of their day, if both of those periods are advantaged by the teachers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Questions, comments? All right, then we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding any items on the consent agenda?
No.
All right, if not, then may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Juliet Rago first, Mary Ann Powell second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Peyton Howe,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Jolick,
Yes.
Rago,
Yes.
Ting Paul Pong.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The motion has passed. The next item, our first discussion item is the 2020-2021 consumable materials and textbook replenishment proposal. Michelle, did you have anything more to add to this?
No, it's, we typically put together a proposal each year for consumable materials that are used across settings. Most of the time they're workbooks or organizational materials. This year they're in ESL, SPED, AP classes, English classes. We also, as we get books returned, sometimes they're damaged, sometimes they don't come back. So we replenish those every year. So that's in the proposal. And we're estimating a little bit higher of a need this year, depending on how many of these books come back and our returning procedures. So it's about the same as it was last year. It's always around $20,000 to $24,000.
Okay.
Question, are the students charged for any of those inappropriately or non-returned books?
Yeah, there's a system to ask them to pay for books that they don't return.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. All right. If no further questions, then may I have the motion that the Board of Education approve the 2020-2021 consumable materials and textbook replenishment proposal as presented?
So moved.
Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mary Ann. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Juliet. Roll call, please.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Peyton Howe,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Jolick,
Yes.
Rago,
Yes.
Ting Paul Pong.
Yes.
All right, motion has passed. The next item is the special education transportation contract. And Bruce, I think that one is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Wiedemann. Good evening, everyone. This is
Hey, Bruce.
special. Hi, everyone. I think the memo kind of indicates this, but I'll just briefly go over it. The NEDSEC, they coordinate and administer the transportation, special education transportation contract on behalf of all of its members, districts. So this is would be a 3-year agreement. There were 3 complete bids that were received. Septran was the low bidder, and that's the incumbent right now. It would be effective starting with the 2020-21 school year. It was a little bit unusual. Maybe I shouldn't use that word, but in terms of the way, I guess apparently Septran approached the NEDSEC administration about changing some language in the contract. All of that was rejected. So the contract, the way it was written, stands as it is. They agreed to go along with that and accept that, Septran. So the reason I'm kind of going through that is there's specific wording the NEDSEC attorney has advised us to our board to act on when they're approving this motion, or we're asking you to approve this contract tonight. So the contract, as I said, would begin July 1st, 2020. And there's a resolution in there for the board to act on and sign off on. We do have a memo that includes a synopsis of the bid results as well for the NEDSEC business manager. And this, just so everyone is aware, I think you all are, but this is for our outside placement, students who are placed outside of Fenton High School that we are required to transport to those specific locations. So that's what this includes. So we're asking the board to act on this resolution tonight, and we will forward that then over to the NEDSEC administration to complete their process for this.
Okay, and this is probably a dumb question, but I assume since you had, it was recommended that you change the language, that it was changed then in the contract we're signing for them?
They wanted some different provisions in there and some language changes, but it was rejected and they accepted the way the contract was originally written. So no changes were made.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, good question though, for clarification for sure.
And that's why we're adding in there, reject the clarifications portion, correct? That has to do with that wording, correct?
Precisely, Paul, yes.
Okay, and you said that that's consistent with the NEDSEC attorney stated that that's how it should be worded, correct?
Yeah, they basically wrote the motion, so we're just kind of carrying forward the suggested motion that their attorney advised.
Okay.
So the proposals to make those suggestions or changes to the language, was that in the intention of being more sensitive and providing equity in the language?
I think there was some, I don't know specifically all the details because nothing changed. So, but I think it was more of like billing cycle, things like that. In terms of the management of the contract. But all the specifics, I don't know what all those things were. They didn't go into it all that in great detail because nothing was changed from what was in the original bid. So we're just pleased that they agreed. There wasn't any further pushback by them to not accept the way the contract and bid was written.
Okay. And then the other question I have, the following question, is in terms of selecting the vendor for transportation, what other criteria do we use other than price?
I think service, I think their references, reliability, a lot of it stems around reliability and price and capacity. There's not a lot of contractors that can handle, such a diversified contract because there's, what do we have, 6 or 8 different districts that belong to this. So it's a pretty wide span of coverage. So they have to have the appropriate fleet to accommodate the contract. So that's a big part of it as well. And they were all, relatively close in terms of the other two. The second and third bid pricing was very close. And Septran came in, obviously was the lowest bidder. But they were all kind of in the ballpark. So that kind of, I guess reaffirms that it's, it's a reasonable bid pricing that came back.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Well, that's better.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. If no other questions, then may I have a motion that the Board of Education approve the special education transportation services contract as follows. Reject the clarifications portion of Septran Inc.'s bid for special education student transportation services and approve the transportation services contract on that basis for the 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2022 to 23 school years as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Patty. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Roll call, please.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Hilton Howell,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Rego,
yes,
King Paul Fong,
Yes.
All right, motion has passed. Next item is the postponement of the July Board of Education meeting. James, if you could tell us the rationale behind that?
Sure. I thought there was something ahead of that, Paul, but we could go to it real quick. The July Board of Education proposed meeting, I think in the light of guidance coming from ISB or the governor's office or IDPH, it would be wise in our part to delay our board meeting from July 22nd to July 29th in case there's more guidance so we could react appropriately. I think the closer we hold our July meeting closer to August, the more advantageous it is for our students and our parents. It also gives us more time to, whether it's to react or to pivot on whatever guidance that may come down.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Especially in light of what's happening in the developments in July and with the school year starting so soon after the July meeting. That may be a good idea. So if no other questions, does anyone have any questions regarding this? Then may I have a motion that the Board of Education approve to change the July Board of Education meeting date from July 22nd, 2020 to July 29th, 2020.
so moved,
Thank you, Juliet. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Roll call, please.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Galloway,
You're on mute, Patty.
Patty?
Patty, you're on mute. You're on mute.
He knows.
She does?
You're on mute, Patty.
She said
You
yes.
said yes, okay.
I think he's trying to get it,
Technical difficulties.
Rego,
yes,
King Paul Fong,
Yes.
All right, that motion has passed. Thank you.
Yes.
Next item is the resolution affirming the Board of Education's commitment to equity and diversity. James?
Sure. This is a discussion item. The resolution proposal stems from what is happening currently in our society. In many ways, there are two crises, the COVID-19 and social justice. Many school districts and Board of Education are reaffirming their commitment to equity and diversity. This is a proposal for the board to consider a resolution to affirm the board's commitment to equity and diversity. Fenton has always championed equity, diversity, and social justice. It is reflected in our belief statements, policies, Portrait of a Graduate, and Bison Way. We try to live this every day here at Fenton. Attached in the board package is an example resolution that I created. We are asking the Board of Education to consider writing a resolution affirming your commitment to equity and diversity. I could work with the board if they choose to in creating that resolution. And it's really up to you. And that was an example that was presented on the board packet as an example.
So in this, to clarify, there's nothing new. There's no new items that are on this. It's a reaffirmation of our belief statements, policy, and policies and practices that we're employing right now. I'll open it to discussion if anyone thinks the verbiage. Well, I'll just open it to discussion. If anyone wants to, address what's being stated in this.
let her come out. Sorry.
Well, I'm going to jump in.
Okay,
Because as I read this, it seemed like it was way too wordy. Like it had a lot more than it needed to have to state who we are at Fenton. And I think our belief statement that James read at the beginning of our meeting says it all, and we could take that and elaborate a little bit on it. But I think what we want to do is just reaffirm what we're already doing, but try to send a more positive message instead of like, we're not going to do this, but instead put it in a way or word it in such a way that we're going to do this instead, and say it in a more empowering way instead of trying to highlight, I don't know, potential victims. I just think that we could do it emphasizing what we're strongest with at Fenton. And it's not necessarily our diversity, because the whole world is diverse, our whole nation is diverse, our whole communities are diverse. But I think what we have differently at Fenton is our unity. And I think that's what we need to emphasize if we're going to put out some kind of resolution other than what's already stated in our belief system, our mission statement and our beliefs. In a nutshell.
okay. So Patty, what you're looking for is more positive, uplifting type statements. And like you said, regarding specific, just so I understand, so instead of stating embraces diversity, more of embraces unity through diversity, or something along those lines, correct?
Yeah, I think the word you guys are searching for is inclusion. So a lot of times we work with, for example, the idea of diversity and inclusion. We'll put together diversity, equity, inclusion, and the last piece is authenticity. So those are the four categories of the process of, like you said, unity, bringing people together, acceptance. So that's really the binding concepts. So you might want to, if anybody have any feedback on that, but I would suggest maybe the word inclusion in the equity and diversity part of the resolution. And, the language, I think, to Patty's point is...
Kid, I'm having a really hard time hearing you.
Oh, it's probably the background.
Did you guys hear the inclusion part of it? Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I can hear
Yes.
you better now.
Better.
Better.
Okay, thank you guys. So in terms of the process or the intention, I think if I understand what we're trying to achieve, is the idea that yes, we're embracing diversity. Yes, we want to make sure that everybody's treated equal and fairly. The inclusion part in this endeavor is always going to be the last piece, which is the biggest challenge in any of this process, where people feel like they can belong, where they feel included, at the table, at the lunch table, they have a voice, an equal voice. So that's the inclusion part of this. And then the last piece is authenticity, which means that you can just come into school and completely be yourself and not have to worry about being judged, being bullied, and being embraced and feeling like you belong right at home.
All right, thank you, Kit. Now, Kit,
And I think that is a
I'm sorry, go on, Patty.
Can't hear.
I say, I think that's a great goal to have. And yet, I mean, we need to provide that opportunity and the place for them. And not everyone is going to feel welcome wherever they go. Do you know what I mean? But I think it is certainly a goal that we can strive for.
Correct.
I mean,
Right, that could be in the broader sense, but within the parameters of what we want to accomplish through this reaffirmation of what we practice here at Fenton, would that necessarily apply to this situation? I mean, to what we're trying to accomplish in this document?
yeah, I'm not sure. Are you asking me a question or are you making?
Well, yeah, I mean,
If
no,
you're
I
asking a
see
question,
what
I'm
you,
not sure what.
I see what you're saying, Patty. But actually, what I specifically wanted to ask Kit was, you talked about being inclusive, and the second to the last paragraph does say feels a sense of belonging and is treated with dignity and respect. I mean, would you look for a different wording there? Is that what you're saying?
I
Yeah,
think
I'll
we'll
leave it up
document these.
to the
Go ahead.
board in terms of, the nomenclature or just naming what we're trying to achieve. It's all, I think, just how we look at it, how we approach it, how we agree to it as a board, as a community. But from a corporate standpoint, from where I work, I'm a part of the diversity and inclusion ERG leadership, and we focus on that at our company very often. So that's an endeavor that the company that I work with promotes. And so when we identify these key points, the strategic goals, we identify them with the words of diversity, equity, inclusion, particularly. And then the last piece, again, once we've accomplished those three, either through metrics, qualitative or quantitative, then we go through authenticity, which is the qualitative part where, okay, everybody feel like we belong, we take a survey, things like that. And I was just bringing that side to this conversation. It may or may not apply. I just wanted to bring that to you guys.
What
Okay.
are we looking to do today? Are we looking to just get a feel, or are we looking to, did you want us to pass to either pass or not pass what you wrote, or are we gonna wordsmith it, or?
Great question, Juliet. That was an example what I wrote. It really should come from the board, number one. Right now, it's a discussion. This could be tabled as stated, and we could work on it. It should really come from you folks in regards to that. So I provided an example. Seems like there's no action this evening, and you just have to work on it and wordsmith it, as you would say, Juliet.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, I think we can make it seem more positive. It just seems like there's so much negativity going on in the world, and people are focusing on what's bad. And I think we could change the mindset and focus on what's good and what we're already doing positively at Fenton. And that's creating a very unified community.
So in regards to the wordsmithing, if we could, the proposal then would to move is I could contact board members and write up some wording and perhaps present it at the next board meeting. Talk to you, Pat, Kit, Juliet, etc., and Paul, and all the board members, and see where we're at in regards to that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's, I think the consensus is, why don't we proceed that way then, James?
Okay. Sounds good.
And those are all very good suggestions. And that's something that we can let's all definitely take a look at this, look at the wording and so forth. And then if we can just, again, see how you would state this type of statement, basically reaffirming what we're already practicing at Fenton, but wording it in a from what I'm hearing, in a more positive, uplifting, inclusive manner. And then if we could just all contact James or get together with James with some ideas, in that spirit. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Then let's table this then for the next meeting. And so we're not going to take any action on this. So then so there'll be no vote on that. So then we will move on then to the committee reports. So the first one, the Benson, well, I don't think there's anything new with the Bensonville Community Foundation, correct?
Not at this time. I have been in touch with Tom Early, and the one thing that we're working on is the 2019 tax year as far as reporting. So that's on the works.
And Kit, give me a call if you want to have Joe's help with some of that. He said,
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the only, that's the ongoing item right now.
oh my gosh, sorry.
Hello, I don't think,
Yeah, Julie.
can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I just want to make sure, okay, so
Yeah,
that's,
that's for us.
okay. All right, so then we'll move on to Finance Facilities Committee. Marianne, I don't think there's anything new with that, right?
Correct.
All right, IASB delegate, June 4th, I took part in the Connections and Conversations IASB DuPage divisional virtual meeting. Basically, it's other boards in DuPage County come together and discuss relevant items and so forth. The big items that were discussed, I mean, basically a lot of it was just questions. And it all centers around is how is education in the fall semester going to look? And if it's a hybrid, it's all the items that we've been talking about. What is bathroom usage going to look like? What is a trip to the nurse going to look like? How is medically fragile students? How are they going to be? How do they fit in this? How are they going to be treated? One item that was brought up, another consideration was to start the school year earlier to give more time to have a rotation in a hybrid situation. But again, that was just something that was brought up more as a question. How is PPE equipment going to be attained for a lot of the schools? Is there a state source for PPE equipment? And another item that was actually talked about quite a bit was that some students excel in a virtual, in a remote learning environment, while other students do not. Once we gravitate back toward a hybrid and in class, what is the equity in those students that have excelled in the remote learning? How will be something be done for those students that did excel more in remote learning than in class. what is the role of the parents going to be? You know, a couple of people brought up, you know, are there going to be parent advisory boards that are going to have it say so in how the fall is going to look like? Anyway, I didn't want to rattle through everything, but those were the major items that were brought up at the meeting. And basically, they all centered around questions on how the fall semester is going to look. So that's all I have for ISB delegate. Len?
I wasn't there, but I believe James was there.
Yes, I was. We had a board meeting back in June 6th. Topics included numerous things, renewal of the school board legal liability insurance, the renewal of the clinical psychologist service contract. One of the board members was retiring, so there was a recognition in her service at NEDSEC. We talked about summer school. There's 125 students attending their summer school, all remote learning. There was a acceptance preliminary budget reading done at the last board meeting that was voted and accepted on. There was a discussion of current COVID-19 around you page, similar to what we discussed earlier. There was financial report, normally kind of like what we do at our board meeting. The 2021 school calendar was approved. What else? The policy manual revision from press. We had our first reading, waiting to approve that in August. And we just celebrated the end of the school year. NEDSEC does not have a board meeting in July. Our next board meeting is August 10th.
All right, thank you, James. The last one is the policy committee. I don't believe there's anything new, Patty or Kit, correct?
No, we just did all of our policy approval in our consent agenda.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Next board meeting will be on July 29th. And if there's nothing else, then may I have a motion and a second to go into closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity. However, a meeting to consider an increase in compensation to a specific employee of a public body that is subject to the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act may not be closed and shall be open to the public and posted and held in accordance with this act. 5 ILCS 120/221, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. 5 ILCS 120/2 C2. May I have a roll call, please, Mary?
I make I move.
I'm sorry, I need the motion first. May I have a motion?
I make move. I so moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Patty. And I'm sorry, who's second?
Mary Ann, second.
Thank you, Mary Ann. May I have a roll call, please?
Figueroa,
Yes.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Jalowick,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Ping-Pong,
Yes.
Okay, motion, we are in closed session now.
Are we? Wait,
yeah,
are
Well,
we?
not yet, but we are going to be very shortly here.
Jim, are you online?
So,
Go ahead. Jim says go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, we are now back in open session. The next item is the 2020-2021 administration salary increases. We've discussed this, so I think we can go right into the motion. So may I have a motion that the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to make adjustments to the 2020-2021 administrative salaries not to exceed an overall amount of 3.9%. This will not include administrators who are in their retirement track.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mary Ann. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Leo. Roll call, please.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Rego,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong.
Can I ask to clarify that real quick? Not to exceed 3.9, we're not actually voting for 3.9, right?
Correct.
Okay, yes.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, kid. What was your question?
The motion is to vote on an increase of no more than 3.9. So that's the max, but we're not actually voting on the increase rate.
We are voting for the increase at 3.9. Yes.
Oh.
It's not read the motion.
Pardon?
Paul, that was not how you read the motion.
Right. But well, when the wording is not to it and not to exceed, but it's inclusive of the 3.9%.
Okay.
So we're voting on 3.9% as the increase amount.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
So I would say nay.
Oh, now he's saying it. Okay.
Okay. All right. The motion has passed. Next item is the 2020-2021 Ed Will and bus driver salary increases. May I have a motion that the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to make adjustments to the 2020-2021 Ed Will and bus driver salaries? You know what? Actually, I need a clarification here because these are two separate amounts, and because they're pertaining to two separate groups.
So, for at will.
Yes.
It's a
Ed
value.
Will has another amount, and the bus drivers have another amount.
Right.
That's the last sentence.
If you look at the last sentence, Paul, for at will and 1.5% for bus drivers,
Okay.
That sounds complete.
Yes.
Right, but there's different percentage amounts for each.
They're
For each-
supposed to, but
Yeah.
sorry, Paul, they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right, I know, but an overall amount of, and then there's a percentage amount, or am I looking at something different than, hold on.
Overall amount of 3% at will and 1.5. So not to
Okay,
exceed.
then let me make the motion. Okay, let me start the motion over again. I'm sorry. May I have a motion that the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to make adjustments to the 2020-2021 ad will and bus driver salaries not to exceed an overall amount of 1.5% for the bus drivers and 3% for at will.
That is correct. I move the motion.
Thank you, Mary Ann. May I have a second?
I
Second.
second.
Thank you, Patty. Roll call, please.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Rago,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong.
Yes.
Okay, the motion has passed. And I think that's it. Unless someone has some other new business, then may I have a motion and a second to adjourn?
So moved.
That's Juliet.
Thank you, Juliet. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Roll call, please.
Figueroa,
Yes.
Peyton Howell,
Yes.
Wiedemann,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Rago,
Yes.
Tinkle Pong.
Yes.
9:30.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much. What is it, 9:30?
Nine.
It is.
Right on the nose.